When I knocked on my wife's lover's door, I expected a fight. Instead, he exposed a plan that destroyed me. The knock that shouldn't have happened. I need to stop here, just for a moment. I'm standing outside apartment 4B in a building I've never been to before. My hand is raised, ready to knock. My heart is steady. My breathing is calm. I'm not here to yell. I'm not here to throw punches. I'm here to ask one question, one simple question that's been burning in my chest for 3 months. When that door opens, what he says will change everything I thought I knew. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Gerald Palmer. I'm 59 years old. For 34 years, I worked as an accountant for a mid-size insurance firm in Richmond, Virginia. Not exciting work, not glamorous, but steady, reliable. The kind of career that pays mortgages and sends kids to college. I've always been the same way, steady, reliable, predictable, some might say. I believe in order. I believe in systems. I believe that if you do the right things consistently, life rewards you with stability. I also believe betrayal happened to other people, people who weren't paying attention, people who took things for granted. I was wrong. I met Helen 32 years ago at a church potluck. She brought homemade apple pie. I brought store-bought cookies. She laughed at my honesty when I admitted I couldn't bake to save my life. We got married 8 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. We had 2 kids. Marcus is 29 now, works in IT support in Charlotte. Emma is 26, teaching 5th grade in Norfolk. Good kids. We did something right raising them. Helen and I had our routines. Saturday morning farmer's market, Sunday evening walks with our border collie Chester. Tuesday nights were always pasta night. Nothing fancy, just us. From the outside, we probably looked boring, but we were comfortable, safe, or so I thought. It started on a Wednesday in February. Helen came home from what she said was a dentist appointment. I was in the kitchen making dinner, chicken stir-fry, nothing special. "How was the dentist?" I asked, not really paying attention. "Fine, just a cleaning. Dr. Morrison says my teeth look great." She said it smoothly, casually. Then went upstairs to change. I kept stirring the vegetables. But something nagged at me. Dr. Morrison retired 6 months ago. We got the letter. We'd been looking for a new dentist, but hadn't found one yet. I remember because Helen complained about how hard it was to find someone taking new patients. So who did she see today? I didn't say anything, not then. Maybe I misheard. Maybe she misspoke. People make mistakes, but that sentence sat in my stomach like a stone. 2 weeks later, I was at the grocery store picking up milk and bread. It was a Thursday afternoon, around 3 p.m. Helen had said she was meeting her friend Dorothy for lunch at the cafe near the library. I was walking toward the checkout when I glanced out the front window. Across the street in the parking lot of a hotel, I saw her. Helen was getting out of a silver sedan, not our car. She was laughing, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years, the kind of smile she used to give me when we first started dating. A man got out from the driver's side, younger than me. Maybe early 40s. Dark hair, dress shirt with a no tie. He said something. She laughed again, touched his arm. Then they walked into the hotel together. I stood there, frozen, the gallon of milk in my hand getting heavy. My brain trying to process what I'd just seen. Maybe it was innocent, maybe it was work-related, maybe there was an explanation. But the way she touched his arm, the way she looked at him, I knew. I went home that evening and acted normal. Helen came back around 6 p.m. "How was lunch with Dorothy?" I asked. "Oh, it was lovely. We talked for hours. You know how she gets when she starts talking about her grandkids." Another lie, delivered smoothly, convincingly. Every instinct in my body wanted to confront her right then, to demand answers, to ask who that man was. But I didn't. If there's one thing I learned from 34 years of reviewing financial documents, it's this. Never make accusations without proof. Never show your hand before you've seen all the cards. People lie when confronted, they get defensive, they cover tracks. I needed to know the truth, the whole truth. So I decided to wait, to watch, to gather information. I would treat this like I treated discrepancies in financial reports, methodically, carefully, unemotionally. At least that's what I told myself. I bought a small notebook, kept it in my car. Every time Helen left the house, I wrote down the time, what she said she was doing, when she came back. February 27th, 2:30 p.m. Said she was going to the grocery store, returned 5:15 p.m. 3 hours for groceries, March 3rd, 1:00 p.m. Said she was meeting Dorothy for coffee. Returned 4:45 p.m. March 8th, 11 a.m. Said she had a hair appointment, returned 3:30 p.m. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe she was just taking her time, enjoying her freedom. We're both in our late 50s. The kids are grown. She deserves to have her own life. But the pattern was there. Every excuse, every delay, every smooth lie. I started paying more attention when we were out together, looking at who she looked at, how she reacted to her phone. One evening, we were at dinner at our favorite Italian place. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it. Her whole face changed, just for a second. A flash of something. Excitement, nervousness. "Who's that?" I asked casually. "Oh, just a spam call." She turned the phone face down. Later that night, when she was in the shower, I looked at her phone. It was locked with a passcode. She'd never had a passcode before. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. Emma's birthday. Wrong. Marcus's birthday. Wrong. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, but now I knew. She was hiding something, actively hiding it. I didn't follow her, not at first, but I started paying attention to her schedule, the days she left, the routes she took. On March 15th, she said she was going to a book club meeting. I waited 20 minutes after she left. Then I drove to the library where she said the book club met. Her car wasn't there. I drove around, not frantically, just methodically, checking parking lots near cafes, near restaurants. I found her car at the same hotel I'd seen her at before, the Hampton Inn on Westbrook Avenue. I parked across the street, waited. 2 hours later, she came out, with the same man. He kissed her cheek. She smiled, got in her car, drove home. I waited another 10 minutes. Then I drove home a different route. When I got there, she was already in the kitchen making tea. "How was book club?" I asked. "Wonderful. We're reading Where the Crawdads Sing." "Such a beautiful story." I nodded. "Sounds nice." I felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, just cold observation. She was living two lives, and she was good at it. The next week, I called the library, asked about book clubs. "We have 3, the librarian said. Romance readers on Monday mornings, mystery lovers on Wednesday evenings, and classics discussion on Friday afternoons. Does Helen Palmer attend any of those?" "Let me check our sign-in sheets. No, I don't see that name." "Thank you." I hung up. There was no book club. There never was. Everything she'd told me for the past 3 months was a lie. I know that sounds strange, but it's true. Suspecting something and knowing something are different. Suspicion eats at you. It makes you question your own mind, your own memory, your own judgment. Proof is clean, final, undeniable. Yes, it hurt. But at least I could stop wondering if I was crazy, stop second-guessing myself. I wasn't imagining it. My wife was having an affair. Now I needed to know the rest. I stopped seeing Helen as my wife somewhere around late March. I know that sounds cold. But it's the truth. When you've been lied to for months, when someone looks you in the eye every single day and performs affection while living a secret life, something breaks. I started observing her the way I'd observe a financial report with inconsistencies, looking for patterns, checking for discrepancies, searching for the full scope of the problem. I didn't love her less. I think that's what made it harder. I just couldn't trust anything anymore. In early April, I was paying bills. We had a joint checking account and a joint savings account. Helen usually handled the day-to-day expenses. I managed investments and big-picture finances. I logged into our savings account to check the balance. We should have had around $230,000. Money we'd saved over 30 years, money for retirement, for emergencies, for leaving something to the kids. The balance was $191,000. I stared at the screen. $39,000 was missing. I clicked on transactions, started scrolling back. February 10th, withdrawal, $5,000. February 24th, withdrawal, $8,000. March 5th, withdrawal, $12,000. March 19th, withdrawal, $7,000. March 28th, withdrawal, $7,000. All electronic transfers, all to an account I didn't recognize. My hands started shaking. I pulled up every statement, going back 6 months. The withdrawals started in November, small at first, $2,000 here, $3,000 there. Amounts small enough not to trigger alerts, not enough for me to notice during casual checks. But added together, over 6 months, Helen had moved $63,000 out of our savings. To where? To who? I sat in my home office, surrounded by 30 years of financial documents, proof of every careful decision we'd made together, and I realized something. The future we'd built was being quietly dismantled, and I had no idea why. On April 12th, I saw a new transfer. $45,000 moved from our savings to the same unknown account. This was different. This wasn't a few thousand here and there. This was a major withdrawal. I needed to know where this money was going. I called the bank, asked them to identify the receiving account. "I'm sorry, Mr. Palmer, but I can only tell you it's a business account. For privacy reasons, I can't provide more details without a subpoena." A business account. "Can you at least tell me the business name?" A pause. "Richardson Investment Group." Richardson. Was that his last name? The man from the hotel? "Thank you." I hung up and immediately searched the name online. Richardson Investment Group. Founded 2019, specializes in private wealth management and alternative investments. Owner, Trevor Richardson, age 42. There was a photo on the website, professional headshot, smiling. Confident. It was him, the man from the hotel. My wife had given over $100,000 to her lover's business. I went to our file cabinet, found the folder where we kept investment documents. Inside, I found paperwork I'd never seen before. Richardson Investment Group, Partnership Agreement, signed by Helen Palmer. Dated February 3rd, initial investment $50,000, with provisions for additional contributions. I read through the document, legal language, terms and conditions, projected returns of 12 to 15% annually. Then I got to the signature page. There were 2 signatures, Helen Palmer, February 3rd, 2024, Gerald Palmer, February 3rd, 2024. I stared at my own signature, except it wasn't my signature. It looked close, very close. The G in Gerald, the way the P looped in Palmer. Someone had studied my handwriting. But I sign my name 1,000 times a year. I know exactly how I write, the pressure I use, the angle of the letters. This wasn't mine. I'd never forged a document in my life, but I'd reviewed enough financial paperwork to spot irregularities. I pulled out my actual signature from our mortgage papers, from our tax returns, compared them side by side. The forgery was good, probably good enough to fool a casual observer, maybe even good enough to fool a bank clerk. But it wasn't mine. Helen had forged my signature on a $50,000 investment document. That's not just infidelity. That's fraud. That's a crime. I sat there for a long time holding that document, and I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This wasn't just emotional betrayal. This was criminal. I went back to her phone, waited until she was asleep. I'd noticed she charged it on her nightstand. I carefully picked it up, tried the passcode again. This time I tried Trevor's name, different combinations, TREVOR, wrong. TREV, wrong. 0423, wrong. Then I tried the date from the investment document, 020324. The phone unlocked, My stomach dropped. I went straight to messages, found the thread with T with a heart emoji. Months of messages, planning, scheming, talking about their future and starting fresh. But it wasn't romantic. It was strategic. The second transfer went through. Gerald didn't notice. Perfect. We need at least 150K total to make this work. I know, I'm working on it. He trusts me completely. Does he suspect anything? Not at all. He's too focused on his routines, too predictable. I kept scrolling, my hands numb. Then I found it. The message dated March 30th. Trevor. My lawyer looked at the documents. Once you file for divorce and we have the investment secured, you'll have legal claim to half of everything plus your initial contribution. He won't see it coming. Helen. What if he fights it? Trevor. He won't. Men like Gerald don't fight. They accept reality and move on. By the time he realizes what happened, it'll be too late. Helen. I feel a little guilty. Trevor. Don't. You've spent 32 years taking care of him and the kids. You deserve to be happy. We deserve this. I had to put the phone down. I walked to the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face, looked at myself in the mirror. Men like Gerald don't fight. Is that what I was? Someone so predictable, so passive that they could dismantle my entire life and I'd just accept it? I went back to the phone, kept reading, message after message, plans about moving to Florida after the divorce, about buying a condo with their money, about starting a new life. But what struck me most was the tone. Helen talked about me like I was a problem to be managed, an obstacle to be removed, a checkbook to be drained. Gerald won't notice if I take it slowly. He's too trusting. He never questions me about money. I wasn't her partner. I wasn't her husband. I was the funding source for someone else's dream. I screenshotted everything, sent the images to my personal email, deleted the sent messages from her phone, put it back on the charger. Then I went to my office and read through everything again. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a mistake. This was calculated, methodical. Helen had been planning this for at least 6 months, probably longer. The affair with Trevor wasn't just romantic, it was financial. She was moving money into his business, preparing for a divorce, setting up her exit, and she was forging my signature to do it. I could have confronted her the next morning, shown her everything I knew, demanded answers, but I didn't. Because if there's one thing I learned from reviewing financial fraud cases at work, it's this. You don't stop a plan halfway. You let it fully reveal itself. You gather every piece of evidence. You build an airtight case, then you act. I needed to know the full scope, how much money was really involved, what other documents she might have forged, whether there were other accounts, other lies. You don't confront a liar with partial truth. You confront them with everything. So I waited, I watched, I documented, and I planned my own strategy. It was April 28th when I made the decision. I'd spent 6 weeks gathering evidence, bank statements, investment documents, screenshots of messages, transaction records. I had everything I needed for a lawyer, everything I needed for a divorce. But I still had one question. Why? Not why the affair. People have affairs. I understood temptation, understood that marriages can fade. But why the fraud? Why the elaborate scheme? Why not just ask for a divorce honestly? I needed to understand, and the only person who could answer that was Trevor Richardson. So I looked up his address, found that he lived in an apartment complex 15 minutes from our house, apartment 4B. I drove there on a Tuesday afternoon. Helen thought I was at a dentist appointment. Ironic. I parked. Walked up to the building, took the elevator to the 4th floor, and I stood outside his door. I knocked 3 times. Firm, steady, footsteps inside. The sound of a deadbolt turning. The door opened. Trevor Richardson stood there in jeans and a gray t-shirt. He looked confused for maybe half a second. Then his face registered recognition. Not fear, not guilt, just mild annoyance. "Oh," he said, "you must be Helen's husband." Not angry, not defensive, just matter of fact. like I was a delivery person or a neighbor asking about noise. "Gerald," I said. "My name is Gerald Palmer." "Right, Gerald." He leaned against the doorframe, casual, comfortable. "Listen, man, I figured you'd show up eventually. Come on in. We should probably talk." He just invited me in. I followed him into a modern apartment, expensive furniture, large TV. Everything clean and organized. He gestured to a chair. "Want some coffee or something?" "No, thank you." He sat down on the couch. I stayed standing. "So," he said, "I'm guessing Helen hasn't told you about us?" "She hasn't." "Yeah, I figured." He sighed. "Look, I'm going to be straight with you because, honestly, this whole thing has gotten more complicated than I expected. I came prepared for a fight, prepared for denials, prepared for him to defend himself, to tell me he loved her, to justify what he'd done. What I got instead was indifference. Helen came to me about 7 months ago, Trevor said. She'd seen an ad for my investment firm, wanted to talk about growing her money. We met for coffee. She was nice, funny, little lonely if I'm being honest. He said it like he was describing a business meeting. Things developed from there. She started investing with my firm. We started spending time together. She was interested in me. I was interested in her money. He said it so casually. I just stared at him. "You're being very honest," I said carefully. "Why wouldn't I be? You're here. You know, there's no point in lying now." "Did you tell her you loved her?" I asked. Trevor laughed, actually laughed. "Man, Helen told herself that I loved her. I never said those words. I was careful about that. But the messages, I let her believe what she wanted to believe. I was friendly, flirty, complimentary, but I never promised her a future, never said I'd marry her, never said we'd run away together." He stood up, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a folder. "Here, look at this." He handed me documents, investment contracts, terms and conditions. "Everything your wife gave me was voluntary, legal. She signed these documents, signed disclosures, she knew the risks." I looked at the paperwork, pages and pages of legal language, then I saw it. Buried in Section 12, subsection C. All investments carry risk of total loss, no returns are guaranteed. Investor acknowledges this is a high-risk venture. "She gave you over $100,000, I said. $108,000 total, actually. And yeah, she did, voluntarily." "Let me guess," Trevor continued. "She told you she was leaving you, that we were going to be together, that we had a plan." I didn't answer. He nodded. "Yeah, she's been talking about that for 2 months. Problem is I never agreed to any of that. She thinks you're in love with her. She thinks a lot of things. Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm a good guy here. I saw an opportunity. Lonely woman, access to money. I took it. But I didn't lie to her about the business. Everything I told her about the investments was technically true." "Technically?" "The law cares about technically, Mr. Palmer. And technically, I did nothing illegal. Your wife invested in my firm. The firm happens to be struggling. These things happen." My blood went cold. "Struggling?" "Yeah, market conditions, bad timing, the usual. Her investment is probably worth about $20,000 now, maybe less." He said it like he was discussing the weather. "So she gave you $108,000 and you lost most of it. Welcome to high-risk investing." I looked at this man. This person who'd taken my wife's money, her trust, her future, and felt nothing. And I realized something. Helen wasn't in love with him. She was in love with an idea, an escape. A fantasy version of life that was never real, and he'd used that, exploited it, legally. "Does she know?" I asked. "That the money's gone?" "Not yet. I've been delaying that conversation." "And when she finds out?" Trevor shrugged. "She'll be upset, but there's nothing she can do. She's signed the contracts, took the risk, lost." "What about the messages? The plans?" "What plans, Mr. Palmer? I have no messages about leaving my life for her. No promises, no commitments. Check your screenshots carefully. I bet you'll see that I never actually said I'd be with her. She just assumed. I thought back to the messages I'd read. He was right. All the promises, all the future planning. It was Helen talking. Trevor just responding vaguely, letting her build a fantasy. You used her, I said quietly. She used your money without permission, forged your signature on documents, and planned to divorce you to take half of everything. I'd say we're all using each other here. I stood there for a long moment. This man felt nothing. No guilt, no remorse, no conscience, and my wife had destroyed our marriage for him. Thank you for your honesty, I said finally. Sure. Look, for what it's worth, I didn't mean to blow up your marriage. That wasn't my goal. I just wanted the investment. I understand. I turned to leave. Mr. Palmer? I looked back. She really did care about you once. I could tell. She talked about you sometimes, about your kids, about the life you built. He paused. She just wanted something different, something more. Can't really blame her for that. I didn't respond. I walked out of that apartment, got in my car, drove home. No fight, no confrontation. No dramatic scene, just cold, crushing clarity. I waited one more week. I needed time to process, time to plan. Then I called Marcus and Emma, told them I needed them to come home, that it was important, family meeting. They arrived on Saturday. Helen was confused but pleased. It's so nice to have everyone together, she said. We sat around our dining table, the same table where we'd celebrated birthdays, graduations, holidays. Chester lay under my chair. Even he seemed to sense something was wrong. So, Helen said nervously, what's this about? I looked at my kids. They looked worried. Mom has something she wants to tell us, I said calmly. Don't you, Helen? Helen's face went pale. What are you talking about? You said you wanted to discuss the future, about making changes. I kept my voice level. I think now is a good time. The kids are here. We're all together. She glanced at Marcus and Emma, then back at me. I don't know what you mean. Then let me help you. I placed my hands flat on the table. You've been thinking about our retirement, about downsizing, about making changes to our financial situation, haven't you? We've talked about that, she said carefully. We haven't actually, but you and Trevor Richardson have. The silence was deafening. Emma spoke first. Who's Trevor Richardson? Helen's eyes filled with tears. Gerald, please. Answer your daughter's question. He's someone I've been seeing. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Seeing? It's not what you think. What I think, I interrupted, is that you've been having an affair for 7 months. What I think is that you've withdrawn $108,000 from our savings. What I think is that you forged my signature on investment documents. What I think is that you've been planning to divorce me and take as much money as possible. Helen was crying now. You don't understand. Then explain it to us. I pulled out the folder I'd prepared. Months of evidence, bank statements, investment contracts, screenshots. I slid them across the table. Marcus, Emma, I want you to see what your mother has been doing. They picked up the papers, started reading. I watched their faces change, confusion, shock, anger. Mom, Emma whispered, you forged Dad's signature? It wasn't like that. It's exactly like that, I said. She signed my name on documents without my knowledge or permission. That's fraud. That's illegal. I was going to tell you, Helen said desperately. I just needed time. Time for what? Time to move more money? Time to file for divorce? Time to destroy everything we built? Marcus was shaking his head. I don't understand. Why? Why would you do this? Helen looked at our children, her eyes pleading. I've spent 32 years taking care of this family. I gave up my career, my dreams, everything. I did everything for you, for your father, for this family. And I wanted something for myself. I wanted to feel alive again. So you stole from Dad? Emma's voice was cold. It's our money. It's joint money, I corrected, which you took without permission, which you invested with your lover, which is now mostly gone. Helen's head snapped up. What? I visited Trevor 3 days ago, had a very interesting conversation. Your $108,000 investment? It's worth about $20,000 now, maybe less. He lost it. Market conditions, he says. The color drained from Helen's face. No, that's not possible, he said. He said a lot of things. He also said he never promised you a future, never said he loved you, never planned to leave his life for you. Check your messages carefully. You'll see he's right. Helen grabbed her phone, started scrolling frantically. I watched her face as she realized the truth. Every vague response from Trevor, every non-commitment, every time she'd told him she loved him and he'd responded with something neutral. No, she whispered. Did you think he cared about you? I asked quietly. A 42-year-old man with a struggling business and a lonely older woman with access to money? Did you really think that was love? Helen was sobbing now, full body-shaking sobs. She grabbed her phone, called Trevor, straight to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. She texted him. Trevor, please answer, I need to talk to you. No response. She called again. This time a message. The number you have reached has been disconnected. Helen looked up at me, at Marcus, at Emma, and I saw the moment she understood. He was gone. The money was gone. Everything was gone. Mom, Marcus said quietly, how could you? Over the next hour, I explained everything, the timeline, the amount of money, the forged signatures, the affair, the plan to divorce me, all of it. Emma kept wiping tears from her face. Marcus just sat there, stone-faced. Helen tried to explain, tried to justify, tried to make them understand, but there's no justifying fraud. There's no explaining away betrayal. I'm filing for divorce, I said finally. Emma is a lawyer. She's going to represent me. Based on the evidence, you're not going to get much in the settlement. The forged signature means I could press criminal charges. The affair means no alimony. You can't do this, Helen whispered. I can, and I am. What about the kids? Marcus stood up. Don't use us as leverage, Mom. You made your choices. You didn't think about us when you were stealing from Dad, when you were forging his signature, when you were planning to run off with some guy. I'm still your mother. You're a stranger, Emma said coldly. The woman I thought was my mother wouldn't do this. Helen looked at me, one last plea. Gerald, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can... No, I said simply. We can't. Helen moved out the next week, went to stay with her sister in Baltimore. The divorce took 3 months. Emma made sure it was airtight. Helen got almost nothing. The house stayed mine. The remaining savings stayed mine. No alimony because of the affair and the fraud. She had to get a job, first time in 25 years, found work as a receptionist at a dental office. The irony wasn't lost on me. Now I'm here, alone in a house that used to hold a family. The walls are the same. The furniture is the same, but the silence is different. Chester seems to notice it too. He follows me from room to room now, like he's worried I might disappear. Marcus and Emma struggled with it all. They still loved their mother. You don't stop loving someone just because they hurt you, but they couldn't forgive what she'd done. Dad, Marcus said one evening over dinner, how did you stay so calm through all of this? I thought about it. Because anger doesn't solve problems, it just creates new ones. I learned a long time ago that the best revenge is living well, being better than the situation. Emma nodded. I used to think love meant trusting completely, never questioning, never doubting. And now I think love means trusting but also protecting yourself, having boundaries, expecting honesty. They both learned something important, something I wish I'd taught them earlier. Love without wisdom is dangerous. Trust without verification is foolish. You can care about someone and still hold them accountable. People ask me sometimes if I regret going to Trevor's apartment that day, if I wish I'd just confronted Helen directly, if I wish I'd stayed ignorant. The answer is no. That knock didn't start the destruction, it revealed it. Helen destroyed our marriage months before I found out. She destroyed it when she decided lying was easier than honesty, when she decided my money was hers to take, when she decided a fantasy was worth more than reality. All I did was uncover the truth, and yes, the truth hurt. The truth shattered everything I thought I knew about my life, but living a lie would have hurt more. Eventually, Helen would have filed for divorce. Eventually, she would have taken everything she could. Eventually, I would have woken up one day and realized my entire life had been dismantled while I slept. At least this way, I saw it coming. I protected myself. I fought back. That knock on Trevor's door gave me information. Information gave me power, and power gave me control over my own future. So no, I don't regret it. It's been 4 months since the divorce was finalized. I still live in the same house. Still walk Chester every morning. Still make pasta on Tuesday nights, though now it's just for me. Helen tried calling a few times. I didn't answer. There's nothing left to say. Marcus and Emma visit regularly. They're healing, slowly, but they're getting there. Last week I went to the farmer's market, something I used to do with Helen every Saturday. I was looking at apples when a woman next to me said, "The Honeycrisps are best this time of year." I looked over. She was about my age, silver hair, kind eyes, wearing a windbreaker and jeans. "Thanks," I said. "I'll remember that." "First time shopping alone?" she asked gently. "How did you know?" "You have that look, like you're relearning how to do something familiar." She smiled. "I've been there, divorced 3 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Best thing that ever happened to me." She extended her hand. "I'm Patricia." "Gerald." We talked for 20 minutes, about nothing important, about apples and weather and the price of groceries, but it felt good, normal, easy. When we parted ways, she said, "Maybe I'll see you here next week." "Maybe you will." I drove home with my groceries and I realized something. I thought that knock on Trevor Richardson's door would end my life. I thought discovering the truth would destroy me. I thought losing Helen, losing my marriage, losing everything I'd built would leave me empty. But it didn't. It gave my life back to me. For 32 years, I'd lived in a comfortable routine, predictable, safe, boring maybe, but I thought it was real. Turns out it was just comfortable lies. Now I'm 59 years old, starting over. Building a new life on a foundation of truth instead of deception. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Better than okay. Because here's what I learned. You can spend decades with someone and still not really know them. You can build a life with someone and they can dismantle it in months. You can trust someone completely and be completely betrayed. But you can also survive it. You can stand up, dust yourself off, and choose to move forward with dignity. I didn't let Helen's choices destroy me. I didn't let Trevor's manipulation define me. I didn't let the pain make me bitter. I gathered evidence. I built a case. I protected myself. I did what needed to be done. And when it was over, I was still standing. That knock on the door didn't give me the fight I expected. It gave me something better. It gave me the truth. And the truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a beautiful lie. 6 months later, I saw Helen last month. By accident. At a grocery store in a different part of town. She looked older, tired. She was alone, pushing a cart with just a few items. She saw me too. Froze for a second. I could have walked away. Pretended I didn't see her, but I didn't. I walked over. "Helen?" "Gerald." Her voice was small, broken. "How are you?" "I'm..." She looked down. "I'm managing." Silence. "I'm sorry," she said finally, "for everything. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know you'll never forgive me, but I need you to know. I'm sorry." I looked at this woman, this stranger who used to be my wife. Part of me wanted to be angry. Part of me wanted to tell her how much she'd hurt me, how many nights I'd spent wondering what I'd done wrong, how much she'd cost me, but I didn't. I know you are, I said quietly, and I hope you find whatever it is you were looking for. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't even know what that was anymore. Maybe that's something you need to figure out. I started to walk away. Gerald? I turned back. Do you think... She swallowed hard. Do you think the kids will ever forgive me? I thought about Marcus, about Emma, about the conversations we'd had, the pain they'd expressed, the disappointment. I don't know, I said honestly, but that's between you and them, not me. She nodded, wiped her eyes. I left her there, standing in the grocery store, alone with her regrets, and I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not anger, not sadness, just peace. That night I sat on my porch with Chester. The sun was setting over the neighborhood. Same view I'd seen 1,000 times, but somehow it looked different now, clearer maybe. My phone buzzed, a text from Patricia. Want to grab coffee tomorrow morning? I found a great place near the park. I smiled. Sure, what time? 8 so? See you then. I put my phone down, scratched Chester behind the ears. 32 years of marriage ended because someone thought they deserved more than what we had, because someone thought a fantasy was worth more than reality, because someone chose deception over honesty. But here's the thing they don't tell you about betrayal. It doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to break you. It can, if you let it. It can make you bitter, cynical, closed off. Or it can teach you something valuable, that you're stronger than you think, that you can survive things you never thought you could. That endings aren't always tragedies. Sometimes they're just new beginnings. I thought that knock on Trevor Richardson's door was the end of my story. Turns out it was just the end of a chapter, and the next chapter. I'm writing it myself. No lies, no deception, no hidden agendas, just truth, and whatever comes from it. And you know what? That's enough. More than enough. It's everything. The door opened. He said what he said, and my entire world changed. Not because of what he said, but because of what I chose to do with that information. I could have fallen apart, could have begged Helen to stay, could have ignored the evidence and lived in denial. But I didn't. I chose truth over comfort, reality over fantasy, self-respect over false peace, and that choice saved my life. So if you're out there dealing with betrayal, dealing with lies, dealing with someone who destroyed your trust, remember this. You are not defined by what someone did to you. You are defined by how you respond. Choose wisely, choose truth, choose yourself. The door will open, and when it does, you'll know exactly what to do. If you like the story, please leave a like and subscribe for more.